Hello, hello, friends and followers. This is Araceli coming from Midwest Mujeres Productions. Here we are today with a full house. Isn't this incredible? Here I'm trying to make sure, can get us all in one screen. It might be a little, but this is how we grew up, right? We grew up like this. This is it. This is it. This is how we're going to go live here with 6 Latinas running. We have representatives with us today from Adelante. And so, yeah, I'm so glad to see you all here and engaging with us. This is amazing. Unprecedented times for sure in 2021. Who would think that we would have 6 local Latinas running for their city council seats? Gloria, I know you have to go right away, so I really want to give you the mic here and talk to us a little bit about Delante. Why is now the time for Latinas to run?
Yeah, first of all, Araceli, thank you so much for just being a phenomenal woman and just professional. I mean, just giving us spaces giving us the space together, right? It's amazing. And so, I think, I ran 3 years ago, 2018. Jan was my campaign manager. She doesn't like to be called a campaign manager, but she was. But it was a very difficult, challenging time. In running a campaign. And so, for one thing, we didn't have many people of color running at that time. And so that really started Adelante. After I won the election for school board, the team, the board, my kitchen cabinet got together. We talked about what worked, what didn't. And one of the things was we just didn't have representation of people running. There was a lot of obstacles. And so Adelante was born, right? It really was. It's a organization that supports candidates of color and training them on how to run a campaign. And so the time is now, right, for our Latinas to step in and lean in on making these tough policy, budget decisions that impact our very own communities. And so that is why the time is now, right? I think given what's happened nationally, given what's happened locally, we all have realized that people are serving in these seats who don't know our experiences, who don't understand, who do not reflect our community, but making decisions that impact us directly. And so that's why it's time. And it's time because we have organizations like Adelante and other organizations who are really moving to support our candidates of color, recognizing that we can no longer continue to serve and conduct government business the way we have before in the past, and that we are seeing that climate of change, right? It's happening right in front of us. And it's happening now. We have 38 candidates of color who are running for political office. And we have the list of these phenomenal Latina candidates who are running. And we got Julia Arta-Fratta out of Fitchburg, who has really set the stage for many of us in running for an election and for political office. And so, Julia and others who have really paved the way for many of us. And that's why, right? It is, we don't all agree on policy issues. We don't all agree on everything, but we bring a voice that's to the table, no matter what the decision is or what the policy is. And so, so I think it's time. It's time.
It is time. It is absolutely our time. And thank you so very much. I know you're so incredibly busy, Gloria. You got a big shit to run there with the whole school board. And so thank you so much for coming and gracing us with your presence and telling, just like energizing the conversation and challenging all of us to rise to this occasion. Because right now we got some big steps we're stepping into. We're stepping into some bigger steps here. And so I really love it. And you're right. it's like it transcends a little bit about the policy and like bringing us together. Like what unifies us is that we're here, where our voices is often unseen and unheard, and we kind of bring in those other voices that are unseen and unheard as well, and making way for them.
Yeah, sure. I just want to add, thank you all, each and every one of you, for leaning in and stepping out and running for political office. We need you to win, and we need you on the city council in the many different districts that you're running for. And don't let anybody tell you that you're not good enough, that you can't do this, because I know what it feels like, and you are, right? And so just thank you for running. I appreciate you, and I gotta go, but Jan is gonna be here to answer any questions that you may have, or whatever comes out with reference to Adelante. Madison, really, we do depend on contributions to try. Right? I mean, that's huge. We have a fabulous website. Please go to it right now. As you're watching, go to it.
Yes, and it's right there on the comments. So you
right there. It's www.adelantemadison.com to learn more and contribute. We do have a membership option. So memberships, sign up for a membership. It lists all the benefits of becoming a member. But the main benefit is that you will support a candidate of color and preparing them to run for future office. So thank you very much, Araceli, and all of you for stepping in and running for elected positions.
Gracias. Sí, no, gracias a ti también. Qué bonito. All right, man. That's how we show up for community. That is how we show up for community. So I'm Araceli Esparza. I'm a commentator of sorts here in Midwest Mujeres Productions. And I am going to help guide us in this conversation. Somebody who was born and raised here in Madison, I did not see anybody like us running for anything that we're even trying to run for, much less even understand how government works. So I am indebted to people like Gloria, people, other folks in the community who are, pushing the envelope, and folks like Julia and Shiva and a lot of other ladies who have been, really pushing that envelope and saying, what, we matter too, and our voices are here. We offer a unique perspective into politics and policies that directly affect marginalized communities, including some of our own family members, right? So here you go, folks. Let's start with role play. Julia, tell us. This is Julia. Arta-Fratta is the elder for City of Fitchburg Common Council since 2015. Julia is the current president of the council. She is the chair of the Finance Committee and the Community Economic Development Authority Commission. She also serves on the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative Grant Committee. She is right now running for re-election for her, not first, not second, not third, fourth term, friends, fourth term. Julia, how do you do this in the winter, mommy? How do we do this in winter? Tell us a little bit. We're gonna have a chance to talk about all of this challenges, but let's go. I know I want to make sure that we introduce everyone first, and then we're gonna open it up. I'm gonna get distracted here with all of you guys and your beautiful bios, but I'm gonna continue on. Nadia Dominguez is now running for Monona Council as well. She has been here in Madison for over 20 years. She's made Monona her home. She fell in love with the charm of Monona in the community, that those kids, the young kids, the biking on the street, of course. We all love Monona Drive. It is such the escape within the city, right? Her great uncle, Vicente Dominguez, was a philanthropic physician who fell into politics as a senator. He was killed for his beliefs in speaking out against the corruption and demanding basic necessities for the poor and the natives, running water, public education, and roads. The highest medal of honor in Mexico is named after him, as are many street schools and hospitals are in her father's hometown. I present you Nadia Dominguez, who is running for Monona as well. There is Faustina Bohling, longtime resident of Dane County, who has spent the last 6 years in the city of Madison, but also now running the last 6 years in the city of Sun Prairie. She's running for council there. Her professional background is in human resources as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion. When she came to Sun Prairie, she volunteered to be part of the diversity and inclusion subcommittee, focusing on city services and HR. She currently serves on the bike subcommittee, the personnel committee, and she has done so much for our community and sat in so many seats and committee levels as well. And I'm going to let her talk more about this as well throughout our conversation. Finally, I would like to introduce Tessa Vedia. Oh, this is how when we meet only digitally, I will never know how you want to say your name, Tessa. Corrígeme, correct me. Am I saying it right?
Echavarria?
Vedia. Okay, perfecto. Gracias, Tessa. Her and their partner moved to Elkin Park in the fall of 2018 when they bought their house on Coolidge Street. For years before she had jumped from one rental to another in the Near East Side, she just loves the East Side for the physical space and I would imagine you like to bike as well, right? We all love to bike on the East Side. So when she heard about the F-16 jets flying over their house, they really felt that environmental justice was what they needed to get involved in, and that is why they're running right now. Due to the COVID pandemic, has brought the message home to them as well. And for those reasons, they decided to run for District 12, and would like to talk more about moving forward and taking care of their community. And finally, the last two folks that we have to introduce you to is Veronica Figueroa Velez, who moved to Madison in 1994. She has a long track record in Madison community as a strong advocate for public policy and a firm commitment to equity as well. She sits in many committees, including the Latino Consortium for Action, the City of Madison Police Department Policy and Procedure, the Ad Hoc Committee, the Body-Worn Camera Committee, the Feasibility Review Committee. Oh my gosh, how many more committees, Veronica? And she has been appointed by the Governor Evers to the Interstate Commission for Adult Offender Supervision Committee. Thank you. Veronica is running for District 18 as well. And then we have Jeanette Figueroa, who moved to Madison in 1991. Her and her husband lives in Darnmarsh since 96. They also have been quite involved. She's a volunteer at the Beacon, and she's volunteered with Friends of State Street for a very long time. And as an outreach specialist before COVID-19, she served on their board of directors, is now as treasurer and administrator. She's also the president of the Darnmarsh Neighborhood Association. She was a co-founder of the Puerto Rican Relief Fund of South Central Wisconsin. Thank you so much, Jeanette. What an amazing help that was. I remember that clearly, that fundraising push in 2017. That was just an amazing work there as well. And she is now currently running for District 10. Am I right?
That is correct.
Okay. I think I have everyone. Woo! That was long. And that was nothing. I was like summarizing so crazy. We were going to definitely in the comments, we're going to put links to everyone's platform so that you can individually find out all of these beautiful resumes and backgrounds and histories of these ladies. I would like them to introduce themselves as well. Ladies, why now? We asked this of Gloria. Now I'm asking you individually, whoever wants. Let's start with Tina. Why now? Why now, Faustina? Why is now the time to go to run?
Oh my goodness. When I think about it, the first response is why not? And so for me, it's been a long journey towards this. And I think about, going back to Gloria's original and having Adelante, you have Emily's List, you have Emerge. There's a lot of programs in which help prepare people to run for office. And I think for me, a really important thing for us to recognize is how diverse our communities are and how they're going to continue to become more diverse. And I think that representation does truly matter. And in so many ways and pivotal points in regards to when decisions are being made, how are we ensuring that we have a good rounded perspective and representing our communities? But I think that, and it's not just for segments of our community, it's for smart growth for the community overall, and helping with those blind sides and smart growth. So yeah, that's why now.
That's why now. Who wants to take that on? Let's go dive.
I can go. I mean, I was okay. when I first hear this question, I'm like, okay, there's always a good time for a woman to run for office. It doesn't have to be a Latino woman. It doesn't have to be a person of color. I think that our rights, our reproductive rights, our way of living is always put into a political spectrum that it shouldn't be there. So if we didn't choose that, but since it has been chosen for us to do, then why are we not sitting on the table making the choices that impacts us directly? So I'm all bravo that we are all Latinas or from the Latinx community, but it's always a good time for any woman to run for a seat at the table. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, and of course, this year, obviously, there's a lot going on, COVID 2020, so that really helps you with the push. But it shouldn't be that way. We should always strive to have our voices where the decisions are made.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hannah.
I can go. I think, as you mentioned in my little introduction, one of the reasons I'm running is because of the F-35s and mostly the PFAS contamination in our well water. And when I think about that issue, I think about the next generation is going to affect much more than my generation or current generations. And we think about racial justice and environmental justice and how those contaminants keep getting put in the poor communities, in the communities of color. And we're the only ones that are going to be able to stand up and say, no, not for our kids, not for the next generation. So why now? Because we can't wait any longer, because when those forever chemicals are there, they're forever. And so, that's why I'm motivated to do it now. And I'm excited to see so many people stepping up and running, not just in Madison, but in the surrounding towns, right? Like in all of Dane County, because we can coordinate together, right? We can work to lift up the entire county if we're able to talk across cities here.
I can go next. So I feel like we probably all have a pretty common theme, but I also think we are long overdue, right? Long overdue. So that's first and foremost. I also think in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, we're starting to ramp up. You see it even at UW, and that's kind of the what some people look to, right, as a leader. So we also are. I think at least we're seeing that people are more open and interested in change, and it's not a bad word. It's not a four-letter word anymore, right? And that maybe they think of it as more as transformation or transformative governing, or that we're looking at an evolution or involvement and more engagement in the community. And part of that, I think, is probably due to the kind of the tenuous and tumultuous times that we've entered with COVID, and of course with Black Lives Matter movement, all sorts of things that are ongoing that I really think are kind of catapulting not just Latinas, but certainly individuals who have been historically marginalized, or we can say that belong to a BIPOC community. So I think that it really is that I think we're just kind of growing in terms of there's a growing interest in it, and that a growing awareness, and that I think people do want to see some change in terms of justice and the injustices that people see. So thanks.
Right. No, that's amazing. Yes. Yes. All to that.
Can I go?
Go right ahead, Julia. Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Araceli, for this opportunity. And what I want to mention is that when I ran in 2015, I look at the composition of my city council, and I didn't see the representation that the city of Fitchburg is all about. We are 17% of the Fitchburg population is Latino, and 16% are African American. So we are one of the most diverse community in Dane County. So that one was one of the reasons that I ran, to have that voice at the table. Mm-hmm. And also as a woman, I didn't see that representation either. So I think that we are the largest growing demographic. We are, if you look at all the spectrum, we are very unrepresented in every elected office. So we need more women, we need more Latinas. So we need to be at the table where all the decisions are made, and especially in our community. Local office is a very important place to start our political career. The decisions that we make are very tangible, that affect our neighbors, affect our local economy. So, and I think this is a very good start for all of that. I want to congratulate all of you that they are running for the first time. Local government is a very unique, and the perspective is very interesting. I love it.
Me estás aguantando.
Yeah,
You're holding it in. You're holding it in. Tell us all the chisme. Tell us the real thing.
You can see all the tangible results through your actions, through the way you vote. How you can see it in your community, and this is critical. And this is sometimes you feel proud of something that you did, and I say, oh, I was part of that. So I make it happen. So and I think we need to have an equal political voice at the table. And we should have more Latino inclusion in our political arena. So this is important for us women to be, and Latinas especially, to have a seat at the table.
Gracias, Julia. Gracias.
So
Vero,
I want to
yes.
Yeah, I want to echo everyone here too, and all the perspective they were share in terms of being a woman, in terms of the why not, in terms of this is the time or not the time. And I don't think that there is a right time. I think any time is the right time to run as a woman. And as a woman, they have been in the forefront of representing women, especially women who have been marginalized by the system, marginalized by oppression, marginalized by violence. I think to me it's very important that that voice is represented in any table, women represented in any table, and not just for the sake of being represented at the table, but when we talk about children and we talk about youth and we talk about the young generations, putting out there that we cannot continue to talk about the future. We need to talk about the present because our kids are here now. And when our kids see our representation on the table, they can see themselves reflected at the table, that we are representing their future. It's now. It's not tomorrow. It's not in 10 years from now. It's what's going to happen right now, and what are the decisions that we can collectively make to make an impact in their lives right now. And we see that in all the things that are happening with this pandemic. We've seen how this pandemic has shined a light on so many disparities in our city. For me, this is a long time planning for me. I've been involved in so many policy-driven solutions through the coalitions, through the work that I've done, serving victims in our city and working in improving the quality of lives of people in general, that I've been preparing myself for this process for a very long time. It happens to be that the pandemic finally slapped me in the face and said, Veronica, it's time to let's get going and do this, because literally, the decisions that have been made last year, I wasn't happy with that. And it's time to act and take action and move forward and move us forward. But in terms of being a woman and that representation that we need at the table, to me as a mother, the biggest thing that I could leave to that generation that we're talking about is the present and how we can improve their situation right now and right here as a parent.
As a parent, you really hit that right there, Veronica. As a parent, a lot of us are parents. If now we have nephews, we have children in our lives, in our circles, and that means a lot, especially in nuestra cultura. One person I did not feel like I really introduced you, Jan. I'm so sorry. Jan wasn't. I'm going to introduce Jan Steinberg here because she has been a really active person. Anything most things that I know right now about being political and running for office, I have, vicariously been living through Jan in a lot of ways. It's just it's seeing her leadership as well as a supporter, as like myself too. We're all here supporting these beautiful women, amazing women who are doing these very noble, very brave and noble things. And Jan here, she was an active member of citywide campaigns in Madison shortly after moving here in the 90s. She retired from higher education social services and was asked by Gloria Reyes to help her with her campaign, which re-energized her due to the challenges, right? And she's going to talk about that a little bit. But when Adelante was formed about 2.5 years ago by the four original board members with impetus with Scott McDonald, Jen was honored to be given the opportunity to work with them. Jen, you've been hearing about the why now, and tell us about how hard it is in the now to be running in this political landscape, and what are the challenges that you have seen as a white woman supporting BIPOC people running that might be unique?
Well, to be blunt, I think it's been pretty horrifying seeing the reaction of, Madison throughout the county. They have been reacting to BIPOC candidates. It's really been eye-opening for me. I grew up with a bicultural family. I didn't grow up with one. They grew me up. And my partner. So it's not like I didn't know it was. When you have over and over again people telling candidates of color that, well, you're not smart enough. I mean, literally saying, you're not smart enough, or you don't have the experience, or you don't know anything about what you're talking about, that kind of thing. Rage can motivate me. And and I will say that rage has motivated. I really do feel that one of the things here being work with Adelante. And I really like Adelante is that as a group, Adelante has not tried to say, okay, there's only one voice. We've tried to say, yeah, come in. We'll try to give you whatever tools we can, limited though they may be, so that you kind of know what you're walking into when you decide to run for office. And the reality is we barely scratched the surface. The energy from the candidates, all we're doing is trying to even up the playing field a little bit, because I will tell you, most white candidates, when they run, know somebody who was already in office, or know somebody who's been active, or know somebody who, whatever. They're really, that really does exist. And so we're just hoping to try to even it up a little bit. I think each year we're hopefully making a little more progress with that. I think we have a long way to go before we make a real dent in it, but it's something that I really care about. So that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. Thank you so much for pointing out that disparity, that a lot of our white counterparts will already have maybe a family member, un conocido, somebody they know, alguien que conocen, they know, who has run, and they can show them this. I know when I was growing, nobody even said to go to college, much less to run. I'm like, ¿cómo? We barely can vote. That's already like hard enough, But ¿cómo llegamos a dónde vamos a votar? Like, how do we get there? Who do we vote for? El más guapo is like, kind of around my house. I'm joking. But going back to thank you so very much, Jen, for giving us that eye view, really naming the disparities that you've seen and the generalizations people have made against Latinas to even say that we're not smart enough or not knowing enough. I mean, that just baffles me. It baffles me, but does not surprise us as well. It's not surprising. Moving on to that second question, though, you're talking about the disparities. I'm looking around us here, and I'm going to just say it. We're a bunch of light-colored Latinas in this room right here. And it's African-American month. Yep. And that's a reality también. Que our Afro-Latina mujeres they're not feeling, they're not here. And I want to make sure that they are here for us next year and that we're there for them next year. And that is why I'm supporting things like Adelante and other movements that, there's Reclaim Madison. There's so many other micro grassroots movements that I know are energizing activists and organizers to want to run and take. And I've been seeing them show up more and more in city council. I've been invited. I don't even know how a poet gets invited to these things, but apparently we do. We get to speak on things. We're like, what? But we're utilizing our voices. So let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about being Latina and the colorism that we face sometimes, even in our own communities, and how that shows up in running for offices. Jeanette, oh, you're on mute. If you're talking, Jeanette, let me unmute you. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you want to follow the same order that you put on the chat, or?
Oh, yeah, then you're right. It's Tina then first. Go ahead, Tina.
I'm still processing. I'll pass for now.
Okay.
It's a deep question.
Okay, I'll take it, because this is an extremely good question, and one that I don't know. Maybe my input, it may be a little bit blunt, but here it goes. So
that's great. That's what we want, mommy. That's what we want.
No, So I'll try to be as gentle as possible. But okay, so I come from Puerto Rico, so my personal experience, I have a perspective already that is based on coming from a country that is part of the United States, where we are born citizens, where we are supposed to be part of this community. But yet we also, when you're growing up there, you are see the mainland and the main government as the oppressor of the people. So we grew up in the oldest colony in the world, right? So you move here. I mean, I moved here in 91, and almost immediately you realize that you don't belong here. That you open your mouth and your the accent comes out, and you realize, oh yeah, she's not one of us. And that honestly didn't bother me, but it really solidified this idea that I was not a white person. So it just like kept on adding that idea that, oh, you know what, you're right, I am not one of you. And for years, that was the bubble that I built here in Madison, that I put around me. And it took me a long, long time to realize that I'm freaking white, that there's no, the secret is out. I thought that when I said I wasn't white, I was thinking, I grew up as a Puerto Rican. That means I'm a mix of African, Spaniard, and Taino Native Indians. So I am not, my blood is a mix of culture, a mix of races. So I thought that was enough. And the rejection that you encounter, it just solidified those beliefs. So when it came to the point that I, wake up and realize that my skin color, regardless of being Latinx, that my skin color gave me an advantage over other people, that was pretty difficult to a very hard pill to swallow. So that came with a lot of shame, a lot of pain, and it took time to get used to the idea that perhaps, how to use that power, that I too, even though I'm a Latinx, even though that I come from the oldest colony, even though I know what oppression feels like, I'm still white and I still have privilege. So it is up to me to every single day. This is not something that you learn and just sticks with you and you take it with you everywhere. No, it is like in almost every single decision, every single minute of your day, you have to really be on that state of mind to remember that you have a power that you had that white privilege, that is a power, right. And it's up to you to decide how you're going to use that. Are you going to use that to benefit yourself, or are you going to use that power to benefit others? So when we come to a place like we are all right here, all Latinx people running for an office, running for a seat, running for our voices to be heard, I really I want to challenge all of us to really self-reflect on why or on how we're using that power. Are we using that to move us up the ladder, or are we using that power to turn around and bring people in with us? Like you were saying earlier about all of us here, we are white. Where is the rest of the representation in our community that are different colors? So I want people. I want our community to know, to really realize this is something that I've been focusing on a lot, that just because you understand the struggle, you still doesn't mean that you understand their struggle. You don't understand what it is to be not white. So please spare me the comparisons, because they don't work here in that thing. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on. And then the second part is, because of COVID-19 and because of all the issues that we've seen that has been magnified in 2020 with police brutality, I feel that a lot of people in the white community are experiencing exactly the same thing I experienced the last few years, where you realize, wow, I'm also white. Am I part of the problem, or am I? And if I'm part of the problem, how can I be part of the solution? So it's like you're not alone, and I think that's one of the reasons I'm running, because I see a lot of people from all different colors realizing that they have a power and they don't know how to use it. So they are not alone. So yeah, to me, this question, I love the question because it's something that I struggle with every day. And again, it's not something that comes easy. It takes practice. It takes work.
It does.
To keep on seeing yourself as part of that dynamic.
Absolutely. And this is why I asked it, because we are in so many different parts of that journey. Tessa, ¿qué quisieras decir tú? What would you like to say? And I'm going to go in Spanglish, y'all.
Yeah.
So I'll just come and flow. Así soy. Pero, bueno, ahí va, vaya.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. I think that the part of the problem we see with this is that there's considered some quota, right? Where it's like, oh, we let one person of color into the government, therefore we don't have to let others, right? So then we're in competition with each other, and it's like, oh, a light-skinned white Latina is taking the place of a darker-skinned Latino, or an indigenous person, or a Black person. But really, we should all be at the table, right? So when we think about, running and opening those doors, it's like, how do we break those boundaries and also push that conversation away from that, right? We don't need to be fighting over one spot. We need to open up and have spots for everybody. And so that's where I think of the conversation, and how do we use our different privileges and different oppressions to make that happen, and to have that conversation, and to stay in community with each other, instead of stepping on each other in the rush to the door.
Absolutely. Instead of stepping on each other on the rush to the door. That is such a beautiful metaphor, because how many times haven't we, and it's not about getting it. Yeah, we can go all night on that one. Nadia.
I guess for me, I do have a lot more privilege because my mother's white. My father's from Mexico, but my mother's white. And depending on who you speak to, I really stand at the doorstep for people. I stand looking inside and decide how they want to view me, right? Some people, usually if they meet me, they decide I'm white, right? And they can group me positively or negatively. But as soon as they see my name, I'm other, right? I belong to this other group. Or sometimes, and so for me, I look at it and I think about my childhood, where my dad praised lighter skin, praised straight hair. I mean, it was a big, my dad would get so upset.
¿Quién tiene el pelo bueno?
Right?
¿Quién tiene el pelito bueno? No, tiene ojos azules. They have blue eyes for 3 days.
And I remember, I remember from childhood walking up to my mom. I was 4 or 5, and I said, I hope that I grow up to have blonde hair and blue eyes. And she was just about in tears, because she, these were things that, and so I got to watch as a child how people treated my dad, how they treated my mother, how they treated myself and my siblings, and how they treated us as a group together. And so as a child, I could observe those differences. I could see how people interacted with my dad. I could see how they interacted with my mom. And if I was walking with my mom, except when we were very, very young, because my brother and I had black hair and black eyes, and because we're outside so much, we were very, very dark. And then it was very contrasting with my mother, who had red hair, blue eyes, freckles, very, very Irish, right? And, so we would be treated differently when we were with her than we were when my dad was present. And so, but definitely I have far more privilege, because 9 months out of the year, I'm very, very white. I'm very, very light skinned. And, but it's something that you grow up being told, or those values of what we consider beautiful in terms of white are held at a higher standard. And, it's hard when you're a child, you don't understand. It's even harder, I think, for me as an adult, because suddenly you become even more aware of it. And I look to some other family members, some of my in-laws who are far darker skinned than I am. And again, you watch, the two, we could, or even some of my siblings who are darker than I am. You can see the difference with some people. Certainly that's not the case for everyone. And we do want to evolve here to a place where we embrace everybody, that whole spectrum of colors, of beauty, of hair, you know, whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's definitely, and I think, you know, we kind of hit on some of these points that for me, I think, you know, and this is very, we're all very different. And when we look at Latinas or Hispanic or however you want to be grouped.
How many, right, there's so many labels for us at this point.
Right.
It's just like a big chicken soup.
Personal opinions about them. And then, you know, when I walk into a group, some people are like, oh, no, you're not Latina. No. You know, and it's like, okay, you know, I mean,
that hurts.
Yeah, and it's just like, and I can't, you know, I can't say otherwise, honestly, because that is their choice that they've made. It has nothing to do with me per se. It's just something that they feel, and we all feel we have a right to those feelings. And I think that, again, it's just we have such a diverse. You talk about the different mixes. Yeah, you know, the combinations are endless. So anyway, absolutely, I think it's a good question. Thanks.
For sure. No, it is. Man, it's always about those things they put us on us when we're little, right? And quién es bueno, quién es malo, qué es bueno pelo, qué es malo pelo. It goes right back to the core of like our colonization and so forth and all of that. So thank you so much, Nadia, for sharing your personal history. Julia, ¿qué vamos a decir?
Okay, so I want to share. Yeah, so you know, I am from Argentina originally, and I am Italian descendant, so I am white. So when I go and you know, I think I pass the first screen when I, you know, people, you know, I look like any other typical white American, but then I open my mouth and I have an accent. Okay, so and then as a Latina, sometime my first time when I ran, I was my first time that I had to do doors. I was in a panic control. I remember my first time. I was in panic.
¿Por qué?
You know?
Why?
Because people sometimes, you know, the way they lean to you, you know, because they don't understand your accent. Sometimes make comment and say, "Why are you running? You know, are you from here?" You know what I mean?
They questioned your even legitimacy to run.
Are you from here? Why are you running? You know what I mean?
Like it's illegal for you to run.
Exactly. You know.
Yeah.
And then, so that one was kind of like a shock for me. And then I, you know, and it's your first time, you're very vulnerable when you're in a door, in front of a door, and trying to say to people why you're trying to run and why, you know, you kind of say, yeah, I love my city. I want to be part of this. I have some ideas how to make this city more, you know, a vibrant city, blah, blah, blah. You can say all of that, but you know that they are listening and they're, you know, your accent, you know, your, you know, I am Italian, move the hands, you know, all of that. I'm sorry. But then, so that one was the first thing. And eventually some people here in Fitchburg, I heard some people that say, oh, you are not originally from Fitchburg, because there are some traditional families in Fitchburg. Oh yeah.
You're not originally from Fitchburg.
Well, yeah, like kind of like
they don't have a hospital for us to be originally from Pittsburgh. I mean,
no, they're all comments. You know, they're all comments that people make, and then the other thing as a running as a Latina is sometimes, you know, fundraising is what is key to run your campaign, and to have connection and to have a network of people that they're going to support. They're going to be there with you to support you. To have that team that they are going to be there even in the moment when you have doubt, you know, and say, why I am doing that, they are supporting you. Sometimes we doubt about our qualification. If we don't check all the boxes, we say, oh, we are not ready. We don't have all the qualification to do. But you know, fundraising is critical. And sometimes I think women are more afraid to ask for money. You know what I mean?
We don't want to ask for money. Of course not. I know.
But this is how I do it for all the first timers.
Yes, tell us your secrets. We want to.
You don't say you need to give me money to me. You say my campaign. You know, you use your campaign. You know, my campaign needs your donation. You know, you're not making like about you. It's about your campaign. You know, So this is how, when do you try to separate that and I say, you're not, when you make a phone call and I say, okay, you introduce yourself, you start first with your group of friends that you have that confidence and start asking money. And then you start learning a little bit how to do it. And then you go to the list that some people gave you and say, you need to call this donor, they are good. And then you introduce yourself and I say, I am here because my campaign is some donation or resources, So you talk in name of the third person, like as of your campaign. So for me, that one was easier when I start using that approach. And also it's hard sometimes for Latina because, most of the people here, we have a full-time job, we have family, and then you have to run your campaign, and sometimes it could be overwhelmed. But I think you have a focus of why you want to do it, why you're going to do it. I remember my first time, it was cold, very cold, because we need to do campaign in winter. And I used to go with a friend, and then we used to knock like one block, and it was so cold, and then we go to the car for a while, drink coffee, and I say, why I am doing this? Why I am doing that? So I have your friend and say, you doing this because the city needs you. We want to do it. So, okay, let's go back again for, you know what I mean? So you need to have that, those friends that they are going to be your cheerleader and you're not going to help you. And then especially in my, I am an accountant, so this is my busy time of the year. And then I had to do campaign. I have an opponent. So it is hard, believe me. But the other thing I want to mention is there is a diversity in our Latino community. So we have different shades, okay? And I am proud to be Argentinian and to be American, and and this is the way I look, but we need to understand that we are a shade of community. Our community is very diverse itself, and we need to be proud of that. So,
Absolutely. I like how you said that. That we need to, thank you, Julia. I like how you said that we are all different shades, and we come at all different identities as well, and nationalities and origins and yes, all of that. Veronica, I know you got a lot to say about this, girl. I'm kidding.
I had my share of experiences with this one. From 98% of the people that I serve are Spanish speakers, and when they walk in the office and I start speaking Spanish, they're like, "Oh, where did you learn Spanish?" I'm like, "From my mother's belly." Grew up speaking Spanish. What are you talking about? And when I tell them that I'm a Spanish speaker, that's my native language, and then I'm Puerto Rican, they're like, "Huh, you're güerita. Why are you like, what happened here?" I'm like, well, Puerto Ricans come in all shades, in all sizes, in our, we have a spectrum of, I think we have all the colors of the color wheel when it comes to our colors. And yes, I speak Spanish. And then when I'm interacting with the white community, it's the accent part, like Julia was talking about, and they don't seem to be moving from that accent piece when we talk. And I had my share of experience in this campaign with that whole accent piece, which sometimes makes me a little uncomfortable. Sometimes I just try to kind of like zero it out. But I think that when we're talking about colorism, and when we're talking about the work that we do, especially when you're running for office and leveraging your own privilege, we can't forget that we need to be very mindful of what we are centering here and what are the voices that we're trying to center without becoming the savior of people. And empowering is what we need to be doing, rather than becoming the white saviors and coming here to like, let me give this to you.
Say that louder. Say it louder.
Because I feel, working from I mean, the people that I have worked for the last 16 years that I have served, that I had the pleasure to serve for the last 16 years in this community, have come from all walks of lives. And it has not only been Latinos. I have served people all the way from Africa, from Turkey, from Afghanistan, all different parts of the world that I have the privilege to serve. And those are the people that we have to center, their lives, their needs, and their voice. And I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here how to run your life. I'm here to empower you to move forward. And you tell me how to do that. And I'm going to find the tools that you need to get there. And if I need to hold your hand for a little bit, I'll do that. But eventually I'm going to have to let you go and push you a little bit to get there. And I think that when we do that and we center those people there, we center the voices of our communities, and we allow our communities to be the decision making and the drivers of those decisions, we thrive and we're able to change the outcomes of things in our communities. And people tend to move forward to a better outcome and do better in life than us becoming, people becoming dependent on decision making by other people. And I'm looking forward to a city council that really embraces this idea of bringing people to the table with intention rather than with the idea of, come to the table, we're going to continue to listen to you like we've been doing for the last X number of years, and then we're going to continue to ignore you because the decision is going to be mine, right? And really having the voices and centering the voices of our communities. It's time to do that, Like if we're going to reach that last girl and that last boy, we need to really listen to the voices of that last boy and girl to be able to pull them from that river. We don't want to drown there. We want to be able to pull that out and be able to help people move forward. And I think as people of color and as people of Latinas that are, light-skinned Latinas, we do come with that privilege of, and also the other part of the privilege piece from people, from women that are light-skinned and Latinas, the whole privilege of our identity in terms of documentation, right? And being able to vote and being able to have that voice the other people don't have, and having that very clear. But also, how do we empower those that can't vote to still have a voice? Because they still have a voice. How do we help you be an influencer into that? Because it's maybe you can't vote, but you can influence other people to do it. You can still be involved in this process. You can still be sitting at the table and influence others to help you out, make those changes and find the tools that you need. So I think that that's what I come in terms of this whole identifying who you are, knowing what your priorities are, but also where is your place in the world in terms of what do you bring to the table and how do you leverage your own identity and your own privilege as a light-skinned Latina with documentation, with decision making, and with power and identity, right? So, and how do we combine all of that? And how do we, co-create together as women and bring that whole mission and vision forward to be able to help people? And without forgetting, like Janet said, that we have to work on this every day. This is a struggle that we have every day because there's people in our community that are still going to continue to see us as, but you still have papers and I don't, and you have white skin and I don't, and you have, right? Well, how can we change that how can I get you to get there? What are the things that you get you to be able to have that power or to have some of the privilege that you need to get to be able to feel that you have some sense of security and some sense of decision making in here, right? So we all here in this call, and everybody that is listening to us, have a responsibility in our communities, whether or not you have documentation, whether or not you're white, brown, yellow, blue, green, you are Democrat or Republican. We all have an obligation to our communities and into the people and the places that we live, and we have to have that very clear. It's not a one person's obligation. We're all in this together, and if we don't start thinking that way, this pandemic is going to continue to the darkest times that we will see if we don't start thinking in a collective setting.
Girl. Mujer. Veronica, thank you so much for that commentary. I mean, that is just so beautiful what you just said about joining us and making, the challenge that we have in our community is to uplift voices that are undocumented, that are marginalized, and how do we, and in figuring out the ways of including their voices so that we can be that amplification for them is what I'm hearing from you. Faustina, I know you wanted some time to marinate in all of these beautiful words.
Everything, what everybody said, no. No, it's a hard one because like the first thing that comes to mind is, growing up here in the Madison area of not enough, right? You get this, like I'm multicultural. My mother is white. My dad is Mexican American. And so, there was always this like, you're something, and so then I speak and it's like, but you're not Latino enough because you don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And so then you sit in this bridge. So, so it's like, it strikes a strong chord with me. And one of the things is it kind of drives my desire for unification, because I feel like it's like, I always try to find where's the opportunity where we see fracture and how do we build those bridges? So I've earlier on is just always really sought to be a bridge amongst communities, but also not to be the hero. I love Veronica, what you're saying about don't go out there and be the white savior. It's about listening. It's about understanding, but it's how do you want me to show up for the cause? And how can I also remove unintended barriers or intended barriers, but also being in a place to identify them. And then, do whatever that particular situation needs in order to create a better outcome. And I think in a systems type of thinking. So I'm always looking at infrastructure and I'm always thinking about policy and procedure and things like that, which people who work with me know. But yeah, but it was a very personal question when we ask that. And then I think about like, when Araceli and I were talking about this is like the messages you get as a woman, specifically culturally. And that's a whole other question. So
it really is. Well, thank you so much, Sheeta. Thank you so much. Jan, you're kind of like this God fairy mother who's been in these campaigns with us, seeing this a little bit from the behind the scenes, pushing us to be in front, to put our faces on these ballots a little bit and supporting us. What do you see that we either do ourselves to hinder ourselves when we're running or wanting to run and wanting to organize as Latina leaders who want voices in the politics? Hello?
That's a really good question. And I want to own the fact that it's easy, in a lot of ways, if this isn't privileged to be the one that says, oh yeah, go out and do it, it's going to be great. Then it is. I'm not the one that has to deal with the stuff day to day. I'm not the one that's being questioned. I can go in a room and eventually people will act like maybe I know something. And so it's very easy for me to say, yeah, go on out and put yourself on the line, disrespected or whatever. So I'm really from the biggest in terms of specifically on the issue of colorism is that I really believe that it's our job as white people, our meaning white folks identified as white folks, to get the heck out of the way. And I really mean that. I cannot say that strongly enough. It's an issue. I retired in part because it was time. Other people take it and run. I believe that frankly is a liberating and empowering feeling for me, to understand that there's a whole world out there ready to do things better, push it further, bring more insight, all of that. And I'm not being self-deprecating in that. That's just the description of what. So for me, that it's very easy, particularly for white folks who to think they need to be involved or they need to be front and center because, they've been trained for it, whatever, they have more access, whatever it is. And I think, we actually had a candidate in this election that stepped aside. Actually, we've had two. Now that I think about it, there's been two candidates who stepped aside saying, you know what, you're the better candidate. And that's something we need to do.
You're right. I did, Jen, absolutely. I was watching Carrie Jury. She was running and Lolita was on there and she dared the opponents to like drop off. So I'm going to do what Lolita did. I'm going to dare any white person that's running against these 6 Latinas to drop now. Just drop. Just go away. Bye. Make it easier. Make it easier for all the BIPOCs that are running.
Okay, campaign is over. Let's go.
Yeah, campaign is over. Ya nos fuimos. Okay, yo te doy un cafecito. Es a consolation. Les doy un tamalito, algo así. It's a consolation prize for you.
No more money.
No more running. Because Elena did it. I can do it too. No, this is what I've been loving about how BIPOC are taking over the internet. Like for this campaign season in Madison, we have been, doing our own lives, like building in community and leadership in our ways and our styles. And this is kind of like our Latino way of doing it, right? Like I wanted to bring us all together. Yet I want to acknowledge. I'm going to call it out that we are not doing this in Spanish. ¿Por qué? Porque nos toma demasiado tiempo. It takes us too long to translate. I'm going to admit that completely myself. I apologize to my comunidad right now, right here. We might be doing this again in Spanish otra vez en unas semanas, but we're going to see, because we called it out a little while ago about how Latinas are not only working full time. I know all of these women have a job, most of them have kids. And if we don't have kids that are little, they're grown, or we have so we have so many different responsibilities on top of the one that we want to take care of your city as well. And so I wanted just to acknowledge all of that and acknowledge the fact that we are even just having this holding the space is not complete of all of our beautiful identity. It is just not even complete holding the space, but it is visionary and it is pushing the envelope. I don't want to say it's revolutionary, but it is visionary. It is definitely a new vision for Madison, Wisconsin, of what you didn't have before, what Latinos were. Okay, we're not the bilingual secretaries. I love bilingual secretaries. I always say that, but that's the only thing that my grandmother imagined me for. Okay, and so it's a different world out here, and each of us have some of us are doctors. Some of us have MDs and PhDs behind our names and master's degrees as well. One question I had though for the 3 of us, because out of the 6 here, 3 of them are not even in Madison. So there's Monona, Fitchburg, and Sun Prairie. And I really want to call out the rural parts of Dane County, okay, where Latinos land. And I had a very big experience in Sun Prairie and in Middleton. 1, growing up in Middleton, but 2, in Sun Prairie, I was a social worker there for close to 4 years, helping migrant workers working in the fields, okay? And también ahí Marshall, so Marshall, much love, mucha raza. There would not be a day of the week I couldn't eat at somebody's house. So it was lovely community organizing. I mean, I love my people in Sun Prairie. Tina, you got a really good community, man. It's amazing. All the Mexicanos over there, just like in Sun Prairie, they just rock. And so it's something else to be a Latina, I think, too, outside of a metro area, in a rural area, okay? Because now you're facing even some of the backlash from our own community también, right? Porque nos ven como like, nomás así como de la casa, right? But we're going to tell them, hey, ahora, now we're running. So how does that go into all of, how does that play into all of this? Is like, that's my next question. How does being part of the community outside of a metropolitan area like Madison and still be a Latina woman or a woman of color affect your position? And I'm just going to really pick on the folks that have either lived outside of Madison for a while in rural areas or are running in the rural areas.
Nadia, you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
So I actually moved here from Minnesota 20 years ago, and it was a shell shock for me. I remember I stepped on foot on campus, UW-Madison. I was working on my PhD. I remember calling my parents and saying, there are only white people here. I'm really confused. It took about a month for me to see really anybody of color outside of a few people actually in my program, in the microbiology program. So that was odd for me. And then just recently, my husband and I were shopping for homes, and we kept looking kind of on the west side because that's where I was more familiar with. And I kept looking around, and I'm like, this is just, a little too, there's not enough diversity for me. And so what makes that comical is we moved to Monona, where up until maybe this year, most people claimed that it was 99% white. And so am I giving feedback? Let me see. Okay, sorry about that. So, that was interesting to come to Monona and really, again, have another eye-opening experience. But certainly, it's a community in transition where the number of people of color are that community is growing. And even as I say some of these things, people of color is also a new term to me, new in terms of coming to Wisconsin. It wasn't commonly used, oddly, in Minnesota. And part of that is also the time, the transition. And so here, there are a lot of things that are different for me, having kind of moved from Minnesota to Madison and then to Monona. And I certainly do think there are challenges because, there are not a lot of us. Those numbers, and that's you really have to rely on people to be a little more open. You have to rely on people to really want to have more voices at the table. And I think, like Veronica really hit on that. And I think that's really important is, for me, I actually am not political at all. And I had some people approach me this summer to run for council. And, my first response was to jump backward and scream no. And I probably did. And I said, no, I don't, there are far better people for that. And then it took me till December to realize that no other person of color is going to be running, and that I would be the first Latinx to be on the ballot for Monona.
That's amazing. I cannot believe when you told me that we had a little bit of a chat prior. When you told me that, I was like, that's insane. It's 2021. But it's real. That's the real thing. Julia, were you also the first Latina in Fitchburg to hold a seat?
I was the first female Latina. Yes.
Okay, so there had been a male.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, interesting. Faustina, will you be the first person in Sun Prairie as well?
Yeah.
How do you feel? Because you've lived in both parts now and been very active in Madison. How is it different in Sun Prairie politics or even community organizing wise?
I would say so I spent my earlier years, so in my bio, I talk about how we lived here, until I was like 5, and then my grandmother stayed here. So I was always coming back and forth from Madison and Sun Prairie. So I got to see how the city has grown. And I kind of chuckled when you were like rural and you stressed that. And I was like, ooh, but it's growing a lot.
It is growing.
Very fast.
I know. You can't even tell the difference. I know. I was just joking. But I was just joking. Sun Prairie isn't neither is Monona really. But
it's interesting, coming back and living here, because I had some preconceived notions, even with, coming back and forth. And it's not very far, but I was like, oh my goodness, it's going to be predominantly white. It is still, pretty white. And in regards to the community, though, the community is increasingly becoming diverse. And so when I was able to participate in part of the diversity and inclusion committee, it was amazing to me, the support of the city, the city of Sun Prairie, the Mayor Paul, and how diversity is really a focal point, and making sure that when we're in this point of growth, that we're not blind to the demographics of the community, and that we're trying to really be intentional during the growth. And so that really impressed me, to be really honest. And getting to know people through the committee work, and I purposely joined the bicycling, 1, because I like bicycling, 2, because I was really interested in understanding infrastructure and access, and how people for recreation, also community, and how that all played with transportation and structure, like systems thinking, sorry. And so part of those committee works, really helped me see and meet the other council members and understanding their perspective. And there's always, the ideal of good intention, but there's also things that can go sideways with good intention. So it's really getting to impact. And so that goes back to that bridging comment. So I see that here. And yeah, there's things that do not go perfect. Like we saw it in the news recently. And there is damage that's done, and there's things that we need to do, and there's intentionality that we need to focus in on that so we can get representation so that people are at the table to catch these things before they happen. And yeah, I think
it's so important as a person of color outside of Madison, outside of a metropolitan area, to even be more, especially in the, outside of the city of Madison, undocumented immigrants are. Yeah, it's dangerous for them. It's dangerous for them. So we need to be representative in those areas outside of Madison proper, and we need to be pushing those. And that kind of leads me to that next question we had from our audience. And I just want to acknowledge our audience has been so engaging. We love you. We love you, Monica, Shiva, Wendy, everyone, Victoria, Jonathan, Tess also mentored there, and Benta, Juan Jose Lopez, Fefa, all of these women, Lorena, Natalia, all of these women have been supporting us throughout this live. And I just want to say thank you so very much to our audience. We love our community, the Latinas and apoyadoras de la comunidad. And we have our next question was from our audience. They wanted to ask us, how do we see law enforcement helping your vision for the future in our community? This is the question from our audience. And I feel, I mentioned it right now, and I think it's a nice segue from why it's important for Latinas to be running in other parts of, not a metropolitan area, in other parts, perhaps rural or outside suburban communities. Why is it important for us to be running in those areas? And I think we all answered that, but let's for those of us who are inside Madison, all of us together, kind of look into this question about how do we see law enforcement helping our vision. And I'm just gonna, Quédate out of the bay. Everyone wants to defund. Quítale su dinerito a la policía. What do we think about all that? Some of those folks are our brothers and sisters, and some of them are, on both sides. And I oftentimes, me veo asking those questions to myself too. And I'm curious too about how you guys in leadership are going to kind of balance that, because I'm I think somebody said here, Nadia was like, there's so many better people qualified than me to run. And here's a question that I having to face those issues every day, I would be stuck. How are you guys answering those type of scenarios in your politics? Julia?
Can I start with?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So here in the city of Fitchburg, we have a very good chief in charge of the police department. He's very open-minded to understand the community of color in the city of Fitchburg. And he always, reached to me to understand how to reach out to the Latino community in the city, how to do it, how to communicate, where if we need to hold a meeting, where we should do it, where people feel safe, So yeah, and also we need to help the police, in the term of policing is, what other thing we can do to invest in our community, also to help the police department to do their job? Do we need to hire more police officers to decrease the level of criminal activity in our community, or we need to look for other options? And this is what in the city of Fitchburg, a couple of Valder, we are trying to do is, what are the other options we can bring to the table that we can work with our police department to create a city where it feels more safe for everyone. And this is what we're trying to do, to create a teen center in the west part of the city, a community center in the north part of Fish Hatchery. So all of these activities and facility and working with other partners like not-for-profit in those areas where we need to, we have the biggest social and economic disparity in the city. We need to bring those facilities. We need to bring more services to those areas. especially community service, municipal services, and work with the police department on those areas. We are not taking money from them. It's how we can work together, looking for different options, looking outside the box. Because if we cannot continue doing the same thing that we are doing right now because we are not obtaining new results. So we need to say, what are the other resources that we can do? And I think this is what we're trying to do in the city of Fitchburg right now. We are a couple of elders that we are pushing for that. We are, of course, there are some people don't see that the more conservative establishment in the city, they see that this is a very aggressive solutions, but we need to look at the long term.
It sounds like you're looking at the long term, and it sounds like you got some short term pushback.
Exactly.
And we're wanting to expand your services, and that's how Latinas are. We like to build places. We like to build buildings. We like to build centers. We want a community. We really put that in the center of a lot of things. ¿Quién más quiere hablar acerca de esto de la policía? I mean, yeah, it's una etapa. It's definitely an issue. Go ahead, Jeanette. Tell us. And how it applies to you. Oh, you got to unmute yourself. And how does it apply specifically to your district? Tell us a little bit about your district. I don't know where you are. You said District 10? Where's District 10? Is this the west side?
That's on the west side. That's covers the border with Joe Maldonado's on Fitchburg in Ally Drive. Goes down to Nakoma and then hits Whitney Way to take that area on Raymond Road behind Home Depot.
So you're really aware. Those are some areas that are, frequently, in police radars. And so obviously you must have some real good insight about this question. Go ahead.
So I mean, one thing that I like are numbers. I mean, that is, I know that there's this fair conception that people are not numbers, but data tells stories. And you can use data to really move your ideas forward. So right now, if you go yourself and immerse yourself into the Madison Police Department statistics and numbers, you can see that they're actually keeping track of how many hours they provide for mental health service calls. So for 2020, they provide over 4,000 hours of mental health calls every single quarter. They haven't released the numbers for the last quarter of 2020, but I'm pretty sure that the number probably will be even higher than 4,000 hours. That means a lot of police officers' hours that have been assigned to mental health, to the mental health crisis. That also means that I can guarantee you that the police department will like to use those 12,000 hours a year doing something else, actually solving crimes. So we have a pilot project going on here on the city of Madison, where we are using the Kahoot project. It's a program that was established in Oregon, and that they have the data to support how effective it is. Where instead of sending when the 911 calls come in for a mental health crisis, instead of sending the police as the first responders, you send a person that is specialized on dealing with mental health services.
I've heard about this. It's like disruption.
It's Kahoot. If you look it up, say
Kahoot.
CAHOOT. So if you research it, it will land you in Oregon, and you can see all the statistics there. You can see how effective that is. So it's like, again, I have people that constantly tell me if there's a fire and you call the police sends the fire department. The 911 operator sends the fire department. They send the police as a backup. They send an ambulance as a backup. So if we have someone calling with a mental health crisis, why are we sending the mental health crisis specialist first and then use the police as a backup and send the ambulance as a backup? So I know, this whole thing of defunding the police, or whatever term you want to use, or allocation of funds, whatever you want to name it, I agree. What we're doing doesn't work. Keep on throwing money to a single department to solve all of our issues is the wrong way to go about it. We need to diversify those funds and make sure that are applied to the people that are already that know what they're doing. So
Right.
I mean, and the second thing on that, I mean, so to me that's super important. It's not working against the police. It's not taking resources from the police. It's giving the police more space for them to do their job by reallocating those services where they need to be. So
Yes.
the second thing when it comes to the police is the collaboration with the county, the collaboration with the state. Having the police driving people all the way out of this county to set them up in Wannabe or whatever that city is over there by Ashland. I mean, to send them up all the way over there, all the hours to make that drive. And it takes 2 officers to drive that person over there. That needs to be resolved. So the county's work is thinking of having a mental health crisis center. Let's work together to make sure, let's work with the health department, with the county, with the state, and the city to ensure that we can establish right here on the city services for the people that need the services.
It sounds like
and mental health. Let me just one more thing.
Sure.
Mental health is an issue that we can continue to think that it belongs to that group or this group or somebody else. Mental health is something that impacts every single one of us. So every one of us is at risk to having a breakdown, to having an emergency call made, to have a police officer that is not trained to come and deal with us, and to totally escalate the situation to a point of no return. So mental health, especially now with COVID, is an issue that impacts and should be looked at for all of us, not just for a segregated group of people. So to me, I think it's, again, we need to partner with the police, but really to make time for them to do their job. And there's jobs that they're doing that they shouldn't be expected to do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anna, for bringing the statistics in. I was just going to point out to everyone, below is the website for Oregon Cahoots. This is how much our audience loves us, that they already put up the information for us. And I was talking about disrupting violence, or is disruption something? And there's a group in Madison.
Violence Interruption Coalition.
Violence, yeah. I would like something like that for Latinos, for immigration, where we have a disruption, and that we do a disruption too. You know, people who are getting stuck, que no hablan inglés, and no tienen papeles, they call us, and we'll help figure it out. And a lot of times it's just looking on your, a lot of times just looking out, it's looking out, and maybe something like that needs to happen for our community as well. Just putting that out there again. I don't know all the intricacies as well. This is, a lot about this is because I'm passionate for us to find other solutions besides more violence. Right, besides more violence, because a lot of times, like you said, we're in a mental health situation. We're confronted. We might be lashing out. Domestic violence is oftentimes there's just so many different ways that our communities are impacted by police and over policing of our community.
Yeah, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, we have programs like as close as Milwaukee that have implemented solutions where they look at violence from the lens of health, and they have the statistics to prove that works.
Yeah. Seems like Tina wanted to say something as well. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to make a quick comment too, because I'm not sure how it is in the other surrounding communities, but what Sun Prairie has done a really good job of is the use of task force and bringing in community members to help inform and really the push and pull in regards to creating solutions that are well-rounded. And so there's an active task force in regards to informing next steps for the police department. And that's one of the things that they've been very intentional in regards to the composition. So that's something I would just encourage. I don't know how it works for other communities, but for community members and people who are watching this, if this is an area or any area of topic that you're interested in, reach out, ask your city, your city representative, how can I get involved? Because that could potentially be an outlet to make a difference.
Thank you, Tina. That is so very true. That is so very true. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm gonna say, as a my niece already is asking if I'm.
Oh, pronto, amiga.
She let the bird out, and the bird is flying around the house.
What? Oh.
So, and I'm trying to avoid the bird landing on my head. So in the middle of the meeting. So So I have the opportunity to work with several departments across the state, and of course, some departments do better than others. But when it comes to Madison itself, is a total different dynamic per se. And I think that unfortunately,
why? But why, Veronica? Why is Madison such a different dynamic?
I think that Madison has created, the city has done such a good job in funding and overfunding the police, and in that they have really missed the point on crucial services for the community and really well-rounded services for the community. And right now, for this pandemic, we're seeing that we're facing another crisis, right? We're facing another pandemic, which is the disparities in our city and the racism that we're facing is the pandemic. And then the greater pandemic that we're facing is that mental health access and the need for mental health support. And that reflects into violence, that reflects into the increase of violence that we're seeing in our community, and to the need of having or not having the access points to support our community. And that has created that disconnect between community and policing. And then we're asking the police way too much of what they're supposed to be doing. Their job is to combat crime. Their job is not to be a social worker. Their job is not to be a mental health provider. Their job is to go and resolve crimes. And right now,
in a respectful manner, though, too.
In a respectful manner, right?
There's a lot. Our trans brothers and sisters are also being our trans populations are also being unfairly treated by the police. And there's been so many. Instances.
So I think that we need to balance that, and we need to level the playing field and put the funding where the funding needs to go, and fund those programs that are crucial in our community, that are going to support our communities to be able to support the police department. Now we have a new police chief in town that I am hopeful that these conversations can start early on for us to start bringing sort of solution. We have a community board now too, right? An oversight board that could also work in terms of what are the solutions that we're going to work forward to bring community and policing to the table. We have a monitor that is going to be hired very soon as well. So all of these things that have been put in place to start working on the recommendations that the police review committee have put forth to the Common Council are going to start being put forth to work on these solutions. But I think that one of the things like Janet and Julia and Faustina were saying is we really need to look at the well-being of our community and how is that being taken care of. And if we don't take care of that at the root causes of really making sure that our well-being and our health is taken care of, we will continue to see this complete disconnect and the crisis that we will continue to endure in terms of violence and unhealthy neighborhoods, and not have a place where neither police is safe, neither us are safe. So I think that we really need to look at decisions that are made and what we fund and how we fund things, and really start putting those buckets of funding to really looking at the mental health needs and the wellness of our community, and start funding and funneling funding to that, and really taking the advantage of the new leadership that is in house. Because as we know, the leadership that we had before was just not really helping to build that bridge and that trust and connection and relationship with the police. And that needs to be mended. That process of mending that relationships need to be worked on. So engaging and collaborating and bringing community leaders together and bringing community members together to start those conversations that need to happen, and it needs to happen soon.
And also, those conversations need to include our intersectionality. And I just, I mentioned it in there, right? I slipped it in there, but this isn't to say that I have lost sight that we're viewing this through a Latina lens, but in that too is an engendered lens too. And so just wanting to really call that out as well, that we have, that our community is infinite divisions and intersections. And so wanting to really honor that too. Tess, go ahead, please.
Hi. Yeah. Yeah, I think people get really scared when they hear defund the police.
Yeah.
But we've been defunding public services for a long time now, right? We've taken money away from the schools, and it's more about what our priorities for we have a certain pot of money as a city, right? And where does that money go? And how does it serve us the best? And maybe it doesn't serve us the best all with the amount that's going to the police department. When you think about some of the militarized gear that they have, a sound cannon, all these things, like how is that keeping Madison safe?
The gas?
The tear gas, right? Like that's a chemical weapon.
We used it more this summer than any other time. I'm very disappointed with that. These people don't know how to talk to nobody. They don't know how to talk to nobody.
Yeah, and many people have. Oh, sorry.
A lot of people. I'm sorry. I'm so upset about that.
No. Lots of people have touched on the mental health crisis, and I couldn't agree more, right? We need different services to address that. But we also need money to go to helping homeless people, to stopping the evictions that are coming, right? In a couple of months, so many people are going to be evicted from not being able to pay their rent. And so, like, how do we set up services as a city to help those people instead of punitive ordinances that just put homeless people in jail all the time, right? How do we get them off the streets, get them homes, get them jobs? So I think it's important on city county level and on the county level to think about how we address the root causes, right? That was just brought up. Like, we address the root causes to reduce these symptoms instead of treating at the very end, right? Instead of putting someone in jail for being homeless, let's figure out why they're homeless and how we can make that not the situation. So that's, to me, participatory budgeting, right? Like letting people come in and make choices about their own community, giving them the power over the funding will allow them to create those centers that they need, create the programs that they need to really uplift our own communities instead of someone else coming in and telling us what our community needs or what's right for us. So I just want to say, I know this is going on for a while, but the last thing is, like, we should not be working with ICE, right? Like, Madison voted to be a sanctuary city time ago. So what's one thing I want to work on law enforcement? Getting immigration out of here, right? Like, this needs to be a safe space for all residents of Madison, documented or not. And people have mentioned the Civilian Oversight Board. Unfortunately, like, they were completely sidestepped in the hiring of the new police chief. And I think it's up to the next city council to make sure that the Civilian Oversight Board actually has oversight, right? If we're going to have that body, getting us to have trust in the police and take community input, then they need to have actual control over what those decisions are so that it means something.
Some of us don't know what that even means, what they're doing. Like, we don't even understand. Like, I need to see a Venn diagram. I really do. I need to see a Venn diagram of, like, how this oversight committee is supposed to help us. I hear about all of it. They have a buzz. I hear they have a budget. I hear they're supposed to, hire somebody and start this structural change. I hear about it, and yet I don't know how it looks like. How is that going to look like in a year? How are we going to know that we were successful in this shifting of power? And I think that's why I'm personally. What district are you running again, Tess?
At District 12.
See, if I was running a District 12, I'd be voting for you right now, girl. But I'm not a District 12, but my guy knows that he needs to
move on over. No, I'm just
I was contemplating moving to somebody's district. I'm not going to talk. Somebody that she's in our comments a lot, and I'm like, maybe one of us could live there in her district because I know she's not running. But we love you, Shiva. Of course, I'm talking about your district. I was very close to wanting to move over there. It's a pretty district, though. But yes, I am so excited about having you all here, and we have such awesome women and men who are watching us, who are, like, really supporting us this whole time. We are going on to an hour and a half. I knew it was going to be long. Yeah, I knew it was going to be long. A bunch of Latinas together here, hablando de que la policía, que los niños, que las chanclas, que todo. I knew it was going to take us a minute to be here, but it's okay. It's okay. I want all of us to speak up and say a couple last words about, if you want to, about what's going on with the police, about wanting to push our structures in a different way. And this isn't because we don't love police or we don't like them or we hate them. This isn't anti-police. This is pro-community and how we know how to de-escalate things, and we know it for our own people. Anyone else wants to take a little hack on this? Oh, Monona.
Yeah, Monona.
I mean, this is the speed traps area, the speed trap of Madison, Monona police. Sorry, I didn't mean to call it like that.
No, I mean, well, honestly, this is a hot topic, especially for me, because honestly, that's why I'm running. This past summer and this fall, Monona has made national infamy.
Tell us about why, though, Nadia. Remind us the historia. Remind us.
So one incident was on June 2nd with Keontae Furge, where a phone call was made saying there was a suspicious person on a Tuesday afternoon at 11 a.m. And it was a young Black male who was hanging out on his friend's porch. And so police officers entered, he went inside, was hanging out, waiting for his friend to come home. He was, a guest. He was visiting there. And the police officers entered the home and handcuffed him and held him at what I would call gunpoint. There were multiple guns held, and he was handcuffed. And he was doing nothing wrong. And so that was the first case. And then there have been 2 deaths of young African Americans. So I don't know whether or not I mentioned that. He was Black. And so that was the response. And then there have been 2 deaths of Black men that have been officer related. They have been deemed, accidental. One was a drowning. One was Elliot Johnson, who had crashed and had, and then a gun went off, and then there was also the incident of this involved Madison and Monona, where a young woman, Miss Walker, I cannot remember her first name at the moment. Some dogs were encouraged, were released, and she was attacked. And
by dogs?
Yes. And
you believe it's racially motivated?
Yes, all of those were young African Americans. And when we look at that and we think about that, that hurts. And there were many marches or rallies regarding these issues in Monona in the past few months. And it really hasn't been addressed. And the chief retired a little bit early, I believe at the end of November. And so right now it is really imperative that we take a look at the issues that are plaguing Monona. And that really is, we need, certainly law enforcement wears far too many hats. So they desperately need something taken off their plates, but they also do need some more training. Some of that is in cultural competency. Some of it is in training, whether it's basic medical training to save a life, which was a life, Elliot Johnson's life may have been saved. Because it did take 5 minutes for the ambulance to be called. So it's addressing that hurt and that pain that causes, that these incidents cause in the community. And so I do think, and when we think about a lot of this training, people are concerned about money, but there are grants, there are federal grants, there are likely as well state grants that funding can be found to help with that training. And also thinking about, kind of backing up here to something else is looking at community outreach in terms of youth initiatives. So, I grew up, I was born in 1976, and in my community, the chief of police was like my second father. And what I observed him doing was he had the police officers in elementary schools, but not in a negative way. They were training us on bike safety. They were the crossing guards. They did all sorts of community outreach at the school. So we knew who they were and they knew who we are. And right now I can only say that I knew of 3 police officers in Monona. One only because he posts on Nextdoor, one because he was involved in 3 violent incidents. And the other was the former chief. So I really do think that we need to improve communication and transparency. And those are fairly common themes, but also looking really at that community outreach and look at how can we create some positive youth initiatives, whether it is bike training or bike races, and really getting creative and looking at communities around this area and what they have done to create more positive interactions with police officers, to give police officers also that opportunity to have something rewarding, to come home and say, oh, you know, I was able to provide assistance. And instead of thinking, you know, a lot of us certainly probably think of police in a negative way. And I think we need to change that. And the way that we change it is really through our actions. And it has to start with better education, better training, youth initiatives, and as almost everyone has said, is really getting more experts in mental health or collaborating with other organizations and initiatives. So I think that hopefully we can really begin to mend that hurt, and as other people have mentioned, build those bridges instead of creating more walls.
And more fear. And more fear. Can you imagine if you're a young black person of, you know, growing up in Monona? Are you going to want to call the police now? I mean, no.
Right. No,
you're not going to want to if you're, you know, you might be yourself a victim of something, and you might not want to even report that crime. And there you go, again. And this is how we end up. Yeah, it's just it's very hard, and it's a hard time. And I'm so glad. And I see some of us rolling our shoulders, and so I think it's getting time to call it a night. What are our last words for our viewers, for our beautiful viewers? Gracias so much for watching and for holding space with us regarding estos temas. These terms are so hard and difficult, but these are how this is how, not even passionate, we are dedicated. We are dedicated to our communities, and we are dedicated to the constituents that we represent. These women are dedicated to serving you and representing our best interests in the most humane way. So go ahead, ladies. Go ahead and give us our last shout outs for the night.
I'll start. Vote.
Hooray.
Go out. Vote. Ask the hard questions. Hold us accountable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Totally echo that.
Gracias, Jeanette.
Vicky, you're in mute. Veronica.
I said I approved that message. Thank you, Faustina.
I want to congratulate all the, you know, all the first timers here in this chat, and you are brave. You have courage to do this. Don't give up. You're gonna have bump in your path, but avoid the noise. Be focused. Finish the race. Some of you is tomorrow. It's a big day for Veronica. I wish you the best tomorrow. And for the rest of us, it's April 6th. So I wish you good luck in your races. And let's, you know, let's see what happened in April 6th. So adelante.
Yep. For this space, and thank you all. This was a great talk. So if you're in District 18, please go vote tomorrow. Vote Veronica Figueroa Velez for District 18. I will not disappoint you, and I'll be waiting for your vote and ready to keep working for the city like I've done for the last 16 years, and more so working for the North Side and working together. So I'll be waiting for your vote. Thank you.
And I want to say one more thing. I mean, about for people like me that are running for the first time, I don't want to forget the people that got me here already. I mean, I landed the most amazing campaign team, and I am just like I went from what am I doing to wow, like they are being amazing. So I want to make sure to give them a shout out. Great people. So thank you and good night. And thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién va a decirnos las buenas noches? Jan. Tina, Tess.
Bye. Thanks for spending the night listening to us. Check out the website for all my platforms on everything. Reach out to me if you have questions. Like, love to hear from people. It's so hard to connect during this time when we can't be physically together, but whatever ways we can do that, please reach out. I want to hear from people in Madison, mostly people in District 12, but everybody.
Thank you, Arta-Fratta. Thank you, ladies. And I just hope if you're interested, you want to hear more, learn more. I have a Facebook page. I'm a little grassroots. How about that? Nadia Dominguez for City Council, for Monona City Council. I'll make that clear. So thank you, ladies.
Up until this interview, I just wanted to call you guys Tessa. So. Yeah, go ahead, Jan. Sorry.
I want to add that just like all of the candidates, I know Araceli has a place to donate to support her work. And it's really, really hard to understand, I think, until you try to do this stuff, how $5 can make a huge difference to a candidate or to somebody like Araceli who's really moving things forward. And I know that a lot of us have this attitude of, well, politics shouldn't cost money. Well, it does. So please fork over some to these good people. So that's what I was going to say. And Adelante too. I won't leave out Adelante.
Thank you, Jan, so much. And I want to acknowledge the women that are sitting behind me as well. Mi hija, mi esposo, mi mamá, mi familia, all my family has been supporting me. And the image that you guys see in the background with AOC was done by Natalia there today. And it posted on our Midwest Mujeres Productions Facebook page. Thank you, Natalia, for this beautiful image, because we are all AOC too, right? Like when AOC came on the scene, I'm sure it gave us all a little bit of a push as Latinas, right? Like it just gave us a little bit like, hey, she's doing it, I can do it too. And she did like what a lot of us do, is like waitressing, working in a restaurant. I mean, how much more like Latina can you get, right? And that's what I love about AOC. That's about what I love about the political scene, is that she is like totally uplifting it in a different manner too. We have new role models in our city. Soya Sotomayor, obviously, too. There's just so many mujeres out there on both the larger platform of politics, and now here we have them locally too. So thank you so very much for joining us tonight. Did I forget anybody? Oh my gosh, I see all these faces and I'm like, did I forget anyone? Very good night. Okay, did everyone get to do shout out to your familias? Yes? See? Okay, buenas noches, gracias a todos. And with that we end. Adios.